His angry young men came about as a howl of rage against the class system. The literary elite and the establishment has been questioned. What cannot be doubted, however, is that the angry young men shook things up and got themselves noticed. Lucky Jim was a bestseller. Look Back in Anger roused strong emotions, and the writers who followed Amos and Osborne made the literary establishment sit up and take notice. The angry young men may have been loud, crude and even obnoxious, but they gave literature a fresh impetus and they helped theater regain its relevance to modern life. With more and more people using banks today, the business of banking is basically about efficient and convenient service delivery. ATM has become an important issue, not only in retaining consumers, but also as a competitive advantage while boosting the overall profitability. ATMs have gained prominence as a delivery channel for banking transactions in India. Banks have been deploying ATMs to increase their reach. ATM provides banking services for 24 hours. For this reason, some people also call it all-time money machine. On most modern ATMs, the customer is identified by inserting a plastic ATM card with a magnetic stripe with a chip that contains a unique card number. Beat poetry was written by a group of American writers who wrote their works after the end of World War II. These writers were inspired by the circumstances created by the World War and went on writing about them in their works. The chief features of the poetry of Beat Generation were the rejection of received standards, innovations in style, experimentation with drugs, alternative sexualities, an interest in Eastern religion, a rejection of materialism, and explicit portrayals of the human condition. The phrase Beat Generation was coined by Jack Kerouac to characterize a perceived underground, anti-conformist youth movement in New York. A postponed action is often a cause of serious misunderstanding and even loss of trust between people. Sometimes, doing a thing at the proper time is done better, saving on time and energy, but delaying it amounts to not only misunderstanding and complication of things, but it can also lead to a loss of trust. A postponed action often requires a person to make excuses and apologize again and again. Nothing such is needed in case the job was done on time. Taking the right action at the most opportune time is very important where relationship is concerned. A wrong action, committed knowingly or unknowingly, should be apologized for immediately.
An enabling environment for FDI has several components. First of all, political and macroeconomic stabilities are an absolute prerequisite for any kind of private investment, including FDI. Numerous studies have amply demonstrated that political and economic stabilities, along with the prospect of growth, are the most important determinants for FDI. Only in extreme cases, such as the existence of crucial natural resources, would a foreign investor go to a war zone or where there is rampant inflation. Secondly, a sound policy and regulatory framework and efficient supporting institutions to enforce the relevant laws and regulations are imperative for FDI to enter and thrive. The modern lifestyle has been a source of climatic and atmospheric conditions. The emissions and concentration of carbon dioxide has increased over 30% during the last 30 years, chiefly due to industrial revolution. Rich countries are not willing to reduce these emissions. They argue that they would be faced with acute unemployment and diminishing of modern facilities. But they comfortably forget that if life itself gets wiped out from the Earth, what would be the basis of their standing? There is another aspect of the problem. The present dangerous level of greenhouse gases in the atmosphere is not likely to strike ominously for another 2 centuries, and it is for sure that the present leadership of the world is not going to survive over such a long period. None of the current publicly known man-made aircrafts are completely invisible. These UFOs are peculiar in other ways as well, like they usually involve some sort of exceedingly bright lights. Moreover, there are occasions when electrical equipment has ceased to work while the UFO is in the vicinity, and when the UFO disappears, the electrical equipment start working again as if nothing has happened. No explanation has ever been found for this. Other supporting theories too explains the reasons why these UFOs are from different planets and not from this world. Einstein's theory of relativity claims that to travel between 2 stars one needs an aircraft with a speed more than that of light. A wise man suitably divides his time between work and play wisely. Those who only work or only enjoy do not do justice to themselves, and the people who idle away their time are the terrible sinners. They who waste their time are the guilty of not only themselves, but also of the family, society and the world at large. It is the time when you have to act. Act now, or you will have to repent at leisure that you did not act when it was the right time. Your family, society, country and the world is watching you and looking for your help. Get ready and achieve the highest goals of life. Only then you can justify the time which God has given you. Else, you too would be lost in the crowd of people with no one to remember you. He has a kind of naked face, in which you see the brain always working, with an almost painful simplicity just saved from being painful by a humorous sense of external things, which becomes also a kind of intellectual criticism. He is a fatalist, and he studies the workings of fate in the chief vivifying and disturbing influence in life, women. His view of women is more French than English. It is subtle, a little cruel, not as tolerant as it seems, thoroughly a man's point of view, and not, as with Meredith, man's and woman's at once. He sees all that is irresponsible for good and evil in a woman's character, all that is unreliable in her brain and will, all that is alluring in her variability. He is her apologist, but always with a certain reserve of private judgment.
The benefits and uses of supercomputers are used in many different fields. For example, supercomputers can predict weather. Every time you check the weather, you are actually seeing the output of a supercomputer. You can also use supercomputers for mathematical calculations, seismic activity, earthquakes, nuclear energy research, fluid dynamic calculations, submarine tracking, pattern matching, graph analysis, cryptology, the study of codes in which the key is unknown, data collection, and researching anything on the Internet. All data goes through supercomputers, and that's why you can find 62,600,000 results of the word dog in 0.04 seconds. Scientists are already figuring out what the future for supercomputers is going to be like. The practice of giving storms personal names appears to have originated with Clement Wragg, an Australian meteorologist who in the 1890s entertained himself by naming storms after women, mythical figures, and politicians that he didn't like. The modern system of using personal names developed during World War II, when meteorologists began using women's names, often those of wives or girlfriends, instead of cumbersome designations based on latitude and longitude. Short and quickly understood, names were easier to transmit over the radio and easier to keep straight if there was more than one storm in a given area. Children are likely to have strong preferences for some colors and aversions to others, but sometimes will not admit to them, since outside factors may be influential in determining both color preferences and the way that they are expressed or suppressed. Current fashions in clothes and accessories, gender stereotyping and peer group pressure may all play a significant part. Boys in particular may be reluctant to admit to any strong preferences for colors other than those of favorite football teams, because color awareness may be regarded by their peer group as feminine.